Foreign agents of Putin. This is what we're going to talk about today. We will talk about Europe, several European countries, and we will talk about United States, for example, and some other countries. We will talk about who are the traitors, or who are the foreign politicians, influencers, and media people perhaps, who is supporting Putin. Why they possibly will do that? It's up to you to decide. It's up to you to find out. Are your politicians are stupid, corrupt, misinformed, or else, something else? Perhaps they just like their clicks and likes and popularity versus the truth, versus the good things for their country, which they're ready to sacrifice their country, they're ready to sacrifice the future of their children just for money, for popularity, for staying in power, and so on. They are your politicians, you deal with it. My politicians are, I'm originally from the USSR and Russia, so the illegitimate Russian president, Putin, is my president, unfortunately. And I live in Canada, so I have legitimately elected Prime Minister in Canada. So they are my problem. These people are yours. Hello there, I'm Elena, welcome to my channel Enough of Propaganda. Today we're saying not only enough of propaganda, but enough of stupidity. And I'm telling the truth on my channel, and more than that, I'm proving everything what I say with facts, video proofs, photos, and so on. So I don't asking anybody to trust me on word. I'm not Putin or Trump. I'm proving what I say. And it's up to you to learn the truth and stay informed, or just hide under the rock and believe in fairy tales, which eventually will damage your country and take away future from your children and grandchildren. And I am not trying to be popular here. I am here to tell the truth, because this is important. I have lived in the USSR and in Russia for many years. I grew up in USSR. So I know what it's look like to live in two dictatorships. So when I came to the free democratic country, I find out, and I travel the world now, and I live in democratic country for many years, I find out what it is like to live in democracy versus to live in dictatorship. So I'm not somebody who just learning and trying to understand something. I already lived in the dictatorships, and I know it's wrong, it's bad, it's awful. That is why I'm making my videos. And I'm telling the truth to the Russians, which is unpleasant. Trolls attacking me all the time, wishing me dead. And I don't care to be popular. I'm cared about telling the truth. Because of that of truth, on that truth, your future depends on it. And the future of future generations of your country. Any country you're from. Especially Russia and Ukraine. So it's up to you to watch it and to find out. And I don't lie, not even to Russians. Why would I lie to Americans or Europeans? I have no reason to. If you don't like what I'm saying, well, you're welcome to unsubscribe then. But I know that people who came to my channel and subscribed, I'm really grateful to them for their support, for their understanding, and for their being there for me in these difficult times for both of my countries, Russia and Canada, because Canada is in danger because of Russian actions and actions of Russian President Vladimir Putin. That is why I'm really grateful to all of them, to all of you, my subscribers. And as to random viewers who came to my channel, you are welcome to learn the truth. This is the whole channel is about, this is what it's for. I will talk about several countries in general, and only few countries I will go into a little bit more details. I will offer you an exclusive look into the future which you can have if you follow the formula of Putin and Trump. Let's make the world great again together. You will find out how smart Vladimir Putin is and how he made Russia great again. Also, I will tell you about some secret formulas of some dictators, like Putin, and wannabe dictators like Viktor Orban, how to control people, how to manipulate people, how to make them love you, and how to manipulate them to do whatever you want, even sacrifice their children for you. It's not that complicated, by the way. First of all, you just need to tell people what they want to hear. It doesn't matter what you think. None of the communist propagandists, which is professionals like Putin, who is from KGB, which is the very people who were taught in the universities how to lie to people, how to manipulate people. And that one of them is number one point is very easy. Lie to them. Lie to them and lie again. No big deal. You just tell everybody and every group of people you meet, potential people who are gonna elect you in the future, whatever they want to hear. It doesn't matter what you believe. Let them hear what they want to hear. That's all. Another thing, never admit to anything. Always blame other people for whatever you do, and you will be successful. And several other things. When we'll talk about Viktor Orban, you'll find out how easy to buy the votes. All you have to do is just spend 3% of your GDP in a few days by giving people increase to their pensions 15%. After you get elected, who cares what's gonna happen to the economy? You already elected. And then you can become a dictator and do whatever you want. And these people will line up and be done voting. Because you will be the only option to vote, like in Russia. As a future dictator, one thing you need to do, and it is very important, it's the restriction of the information. People have to receive information from you and you only. This is what USSR did, this is what Putin does, and did for 20 years. Basically shut down all the independent news and get people receive information only from you. That's it. And isolate them from the rest of the world and from each other. The more suspicion and paranoia go in between them, the more they don't know who to trust because they can go and report on you, the better. If you are democratic in a democratic country, well, that's too bad, because there are independent news, which you can contradict and fight by using the Nazi term fake news. And make sure that everybody who is contradicting you, criticizing you, are fake news. So creating doubts, creating the isolation of people, creating a situation when the people don't know who to trust, nobody, and thinking nobody knows the truth, confusing people. This is one of the main things, how to create a cult and how to create a dictatorship. This is what dictators do. And it works. And the restriction of access to information and the isolation of Russia from the rest of the world have been happening gradually but steadily for over 20 years. All the time Putin in power and was in power, all the time in the USSR, and even somewhat in Gorbachev times quite a bit as well. Despite of perestroika, still not everything was wide open. And the main thing is trust. Trust in any information from abroad is undermined by the creation of a massive amount of fake news. This time real fake news. Made up lies, basically. When the leader just pulling out of the ceiling or a floor or out of his pocket any numbers he wants to justify anything he wants and lie just bluntly in the face of people. And it's done before and it works. And this so-called news is virtually impossible to verify due to its sheer volume. It's called fire hose of disinformation. Consequently, people became desperate and refrained from seeking the truth, believing that nobody knows it, and this is precisely the main goal of Russian propaganda. While the internet is not yet banned in Russia, there are restrictions on free access to it, and trust in the information obtained is eroded through the barrage of falsehoods and outright denial of obvious facts. As a result, the process of isolating Russia from the rest of the world is gaining momentum. We have not reached the level of the USSR isolation yet, thanks to internet and to the internet and to the YouTube, but everything is ahead. All of this aids the leader in better controlling the population, particularly through intimidation and deception. In Russia, people are told that everything is worse abroad than in Russia. Deceitful foreign politicians sing the tunes of Putin's propaganda, and that is helping to lie to Russian people, because look, foreign whatever leader or somebody said something positive about Russia, or saying, oh, we don't have democracy, or something else. Everything is playing in Russian propaganda. All of this. And this is why it's done. To first of all convince Russian people that nobody knows the truth, everything is worse in other countries, and make them more gullible for Russian propaganda. And so is the foreign news. Like, literally, Russia Today was talking to 85 million people at some point when I was writing my book. So we, with our freedom of speech, allowed foreign propaganda on our soil. And this is where it's going. This is what Putin does, and this is what any wannabe dictator will do, and doing right now. There are massive protests going on in Russia, for example, in Bashkortostan Republic. And what Putin did? He just chopped off internet to the whole region. So people can't connect to each other, people can't share the posts, can't share the videos and photographs of what's happening. So the world didn't know anything about it, and Russians didn't know anything about it, and just squashed the protests. So nobody knows about it. When you're a dictator, things like that are easy to do. Before we'll talk about Russia or some other countries, we will talk about Corruption Perception Index by Transparency International for the year 2022. Why we're gonna do that? It's because Russian propaganda is telling people, and many people even in foreign countries, even in democratic countries, believe in nonsense that, oh, everybody is corrupt, Russia is as bad, as good or as bad as everybody else. None of this is true. Corruption Perception Index uses a scale from 0 to 100, when 100 is very clean and 0 is highly corrupt. And let's see who is the number one. It seemed like index 90 got Denmark, which is ranked number 1, so the least corrupted country in the world. Finland number 2, and so on. We're gonna talk about several countries. You're welcome to check this site and see for your country, or a country you're interested. Germany number 9. Australia 13, Canada 14, United Kingdom 18, France 21, Austria 22, United States of America 24. So 24 out of basically 180 countries. Score change, it's better since 2021 by 2 points. Out of 180 countries, United States ranked 24. It's not as good as Canada, but not bad. On the same scale, I see Russia, 137. So rank is 28. So the closest to 0, the worst. And it even one less since 2021, which it was 136. And it was on a level with Angola, Liberia, and Mali. And now Mali is better than Russia. Gabon and Tonga and Papua New Guinea in Mauritania, better than Russia. And I'm not even entirely sure this score is still correct, because Russia is a really, really corrupt country. It may be even below all this table. That's how bad it is. Yeah, Liberia is worse. Uganda and Syria, South Sudan and Somalia. They worse than Russia. You're welcome to play with this map. Even Ukraine is better than Russia. And the score changed to the positive from the previous year on 1 point for Ukraine, 33 out of 100. This is the difference between democratic country and want to be a democratic country. This is Poland, for example. And they are better than Russia and better than Ukraine. And this is really a democratic country. 74, Canada versus Russia, 28. How do I know that this is true? I have lived in Russia. I have lived in the USSR. The country, like Russia, when people were literally driving their car with the money, basically foreign currency, like United States dollars or euros, just in case they will be stopped by the road police, so they have to bribe the policeman. This is the difference. With Canada, where I don't know anybody who even thought about bribing a policeman. So this is not just a numbers for me. This is reality.
Quid pro quo.
A lot of this video will be based on this European Council of Foreign Relations article, Putin's Friends in Europe, from 2016. We will check out what kind of countries, what parties supported Putin back then. 2016, it's 2 years after the war in Ukraine started in 2014, after Russia annexed Crimea illegally, and 73,000 Russian troops invaded Crimea, grabbed it from Ukraine, broke international laws, broke Budapest Memorandum and everything. Who was supporting Russia back then? What leaders, what countries? And we will talk about it a little bit more closely. I recommend you this article. You can read it for yourself. This is another interesting article. Kremlin-linked lobbyists paid European politicians to legitimize annexation of Crimea. This published in February 2023 by Ukrainska Pravda. I've seen proofs of that in several different sources, and I might show it to you today. It's telling that journalists gain access to the electronic correspondence of the Russian media technologist Sargis Mirzakhanyan, who worked as Russian State Duma staffer. And it was published by hackers, and basically the Russian-funded lobbying group, International Agency for Current Policy, has been working with European politicians to push for the lifting EU sanctions against Russia following its annexation of Crimea since at least 2016. This is an important article. Kremlin-linked group arranged payments to European politicians to support Russia's annexation of Crimea. For years, a secret organization run from inside Russia's parliament successfully interfered with European policies and occupied Ukraine. Leaked emails give a new opportunity of the operation and show how European Union politicians who helped push Moscow agenda were offered cash and perks. Key findings. Leaked emails show how a Duma insider built a network of analysts, journalists, and others who helped him push the Kremlin's interests abroad. His group offered cash to European politicians to propose pro-Russian motions in their local legislatures, paid far-right activists to publish pro-Kremlin articles in European media outlets. The network arranged trips to occupied Crimea for European politicians and businessmen, with travel and accommodation covered by Russia's state-funded organizations, and honoraria apparently offered to some individuals. It also helped bring European political figures to Russia to act as election observers, with €68,000 budget allocated to the project. So you're welcome to read this. So this man, Sargis Mirzakhanyan, he was using Russian money, acting as Russian representatives, who was buying support of foreign politicians. And there are proofs, there are facts about that. And then sometimes they have meetings in different places. And this is about planned honoraria for European politicians, according to the leaked documents. And then they have meetings in some gorgeous resorts. And some of them were paid to participate in that so-called referendum in Crimea, like witnesses, foreign witnesses, giving the legitimacy of the fake referendum in Crimea. This is different countries and people from different countries who were connected to all of this. And they were paid to make publishing their articles supporting Kremlin propaganda in their countries. So you're welcome to look more closely into this. This is partly about Czech Republic, but it's in general very important article from Politica, the Putin Adoration Society. A purged Kremlin loyalist, a former Czech president, and assorted anti-Americans find a common cause. This is published in 2015. From Rhodos, Greece. Every October, Kremlin sympathizers gather on this mythical Greek island. This year edition coming amidst political ructions in Moscow and Russia's surprise intervention in Syria had an unusual flavor. This is Vladimir Yakunin, former Russian railway chef and Putin's buddy, who later fell out of favor and was dismissed. The guy who was organizing all that Putin's Adoration Society from other countries. Lots of people came to talk about how they dislike America and how they like Russia and how that's okay to what Russia is doing. And they called it CIA's hybrid warfare and accusing United States and a whole bunch of things which they didn't do. Lavishly funded by a Swiss-based foundation linked to Yakunin. That's guy, railroad chef I was just showing you. This year, Rhodes Forum was attended by 380 people. Their expenses at least partly covered by organizers. The lineup included former Czech President Václav Klaus, former German Defense Minister Karl Theodor zu Guttenberg, and former head of the Council of Europe, Walter Schwimmer, who is a forum permanent co-chairman. Originally on the guest list was Greek Prime Minister Alexis Tsipras, but he sent a deputy foreign minister to greet the participants on his behalf. And it's all happening in Greece, by the way. Most speakers endorsed Russian policies on Syria and Ukraine and rejected those of the West. At the time, Russia killed people like in Bucha, only it was Slavyansk and some other Ukrainian cities. And that's okay, they're endorsing them. In Syria, Russian forces were killing civilians and helped the Syrian regime to gas people and kill people by poisonous gas. And Russian tanks was driving around basically blown apart pieces of cities of Aleppo and shooting and everything and everyone who is coming out of the rubble. What you need to know especially that although the forum can still afford to occupy a 5-star resort for 4 days, long-timers said the number of participants and workshops dwindled compared with previous years. Many were asked to chip in by paying for their airfare, while in the previous years all expenses were covered by organizers. And so Russia paid to these people to come and was paying for years and covering all their airfare and the 5-star resort. In many democratic countries, this would consider a bribe. These people was supporting Putin. The famously Eurosceptic Klaus told Politica that he considered Putin's decision to launch a bombing campaign in Syria a rational step. Yeah, bombing in civilians, a rational step. On Crimea, taken over by Russia in March 2014, that's what he was saying. It is a part of Russia and will remain such in foreseeable future. So basically, former president of Czech Republic does not know that Ukraine is an independent country by the law. He apparently unaware about that, or was unaware at the time. I'm not sure where he stands now, but this is what he said. This is absolutely disgusting. Austria. Freedom Party of Austria. Favorably inclined towards Russia, since that article, for example, from 2016. Belgium. Vlaams Belang, VB, one of the most pro-Russian parties on the far right. Cyprus. AKEL, a pro-Russian party on the far left. I want to point it out that Putin doesn't do anything different than it was done in the USSR. That's what USSR was doing. Putin is buying politicians and parties from far right or from far left. It doesn't matter. Putin is trying to, exactly like USSR did, to create a chaos in the countries. And within that chaos, he trying to destabilize other countries. And it will work somehow in his favor. And plus, these countries and these politicians gonna help him to lift sanctions, to do something useful for him. And we will talk about more closely about this today, and you will find out more about certain countries and certain politicians. Croatia. A Human Shield Party aligns with the pro-Russian camp. The party changed its name, and the new name is the Key of Croatia. It's a populist political party in Croatia, formed out of anti-eviction group of the same name. The party changed its name in 2022, and kind of still continues to operate in Croatia. Czechia. KSCM, Communist Party of Bohemia and Moravia, a pro-Russian party on the far left. All of these parties are still existing. Some of them are actually doing quite well. France. Front National recognizes Russia's annexation of Crimea, received a significant loan from a bank linked to the Kremlin. The party also has a new name, the National Rally, and until 2018 known as National Front, and it is far-right political party in France. It is the largest parliamentary opposition group in the National Assembly, and the party has seen its candidate reach the second round in 2002, 2017 and 2022 presidential elections. So this party is doing quite well. Let's talk more closely about France. Qui pro quo, Marine. It is a proven fact that Marine Le Pen and her party received money from Russia. Le Pen couldn't raise enough money, enough funds for her election campaign, and received them from Putin. In 2014, her party received a loan, so-called loan, of around 11 million euros from Russia, including about 9 million euros from the first Czech Russian bank in Moscow, which was essentially a gift. In 2016, the bank's license was revoked. I researched it even back then when I was writing my book about Russia, and it was published around, in internet I published it in around 2017, so that's when I researched it. This is my translation of Russian article from Version media. It's talking about first Czech Russian bank, which was associated with Gennady Timchenko, Putin's buddy, was robbed. But this is not why we need this article. This is the picture of first Czech Russian bank. I want to show you when it's talking about Marine Le Pen. But one of the facts is that the bank at one time became the hero of high-profile publications. This happened after he gave 9 million euros to the leader of French nationalists Marine Le Pen, who has openly supported Russia in recent years. Other banks refused her, but First Czech Russian Bank gave her money. It is interesting that the French National Front never repaid the debt. I think it would be interesting detail to the portrait of Marine Le Pen. French channel 24, France 24 covered parliamentary inquiry, which exposes collusion between French far-right and Russia. And that qui pro quo, when Marine Le Pen and politicians of France defended Russian annexation of Crimea and their connections with Russian State Duma and Putin, undeniable. And this is what Le Pen has to say. Le Pen admitting that she took a loan. She just denying it was qui pro quo.
I signed a loan with a bank. I didn't sign a loan with Vladimir Putin. It doesn't commit me to anything.
The report also asserts that the Russian regime returned the favor, referring to a meeting between Le Pen and Vladimir Putin in March 2017, less than 4 weeks before the French presidential election. A meeting that only the Russian press was allowed to cover, and that was much anticipated by Le Pen, who wanted to build her international standing according to the report, which is set to be published in full.
This is a BBC article. France Marine Le Pen urges end to Russian sanctions. So Marine Le Pen came to Russia, and Vladimir Putin, the president of Russian Federation, of the biggest country in the world and a nuclear superpower, meeting with some obscure French politician who isn't the president of France, or practically nobody, just a regular French politician. Why is that? Another article about Marine Le Pen, who is finding France's far right. Putin? By Gabriel Gatehouse. Qui pro quo, Marine. And she is working for Putin at the time. She was supporting Putin's policy, advocating for lifting of sanctions, and supporting the annexation of Crimea, which I proved to you on my channel, which was gross violation of international law and Russian aggression, which I have the whole playlist called The War in Ukraine 2014, and about 6 videos when you can see in details how it was done and educate yourself. Moscow likes what Marine Le Pen has to say. It likes her call for EU sanctions imposed on Russia to be scrapped. It likes her claim that Crimea has always been Russian and that there was no Russian invasion of Crimea, it likes your comment to forge a strong partnership with Moscow, which explains why the Kremlin leader took the decision to meet her in Moscow. This is according to the article by Steve Rosenberg. And I agree with him. This is true. This is the Kommersant Russian article I translated with Google Translate for you. France will leave NATO. And this is 2011, published in 2011, when Marine Le Pen told Kommersant about her program. When nominate to presidential candidates for 2012 elections has begun, Marine Le Pen was there, and ahead of President Nicolas Sarkozy in popularity, preparing for her first official visit to Russia. So the other one must have been non-official and so on. And she was saying that she gonna win and she gonna leave NATO and so on. This is what she was saying. I quote, "The crisis could give impetus to changes in the domestic and foreign policy of France, which is long overdue, to stop subordinating to the United States and turn towards Russia. I have been saying for a long time that we need to develop relations with Moscow and not with Washington, since we have many common interests, both in civilizational and strategic terms. More than them with USA?" asking the journalist. "Certainly. American culture is far from French and European, and it has happened historically. At the instigation of the Americans, the French media are also demonizing Russia. Politicians who advocate deepening relations with Russia have difficult time, and it takes a lot of courage to defend this position, which has become almost politically incorrect. If you become president, will France leave NATO? Yes. I was initially against France participation in the alliance." Good one. Great. Russia was happy to publish this. Quid pro quo, Marine. You're welcome to read it for yourself. I'll provide the link to the English version. Another article. Macron attacks Le Pen over her links to Russia in their only head-to-head confrontations. And he's right. He's absolutely correct to do that. This woman betrayed the interests of her country, and I'm sorry to say that French people who voted for her, if you want to destroy your country and become like Russia, well, good luck voting for Marine Le Pen. It's a proven fact that she took money from Russian dictator and supported him until it started to be inconvenient and it could damage her career. That's why now she's pretending that she doesn't support him. But in any way, she's gonna help Putin versus her country. Le Monde. What are Marine Le Pen's ties to Vladimir Putin's Russia? And that's what she's saying. I don't have a bond of friendship with Vladimir Putin, whom I met once in my life. I don't even have financial ties with him. And this was published in 2022, in April, when she's trying to distance herself from Putin after the Russian full-scale invasion of Ukraine. Another French, Nicolas Sarkozy, a French politician who served as president of France in the past. I already covered his ties to Russia in one of my videos, so I won't talk about too much about him personally, but I will say a couple of words. This is translated from Russian, another article from European Truth. Ex-President Sarkozy could receive 300,000 euros for the speech in Moscow where he praised Putin media. It's published in January 13th, 2023. He could receive 300,000 euros in connection with participation in the reception of Russian Direct Investment Fund 5 years ago. And we're welcome to read this article. And also this article says that Sarkozy declined to comment on these transfers and so on. In the past, in 2021, he was found guilty of fraud related to the financing of the 2012 election campaign and so on. But this is more information. Sarkozy also kind of contributed to the rise of Vladimir Putin. This article of Politica I showed you before. Sarkozy's Russian fling. Former French president courts old friend Putin in pro-Russia campaign push. This was in 2015. You can watch how views of Sarkozy changed with time. At first, he was even having a speech in Russian university and telling students that how nice to live in a democracy. I hope you will live in democracy someday. Up to the point when he's trying to supporting Putin and so on. And in early 2015, Sarkozy defended Russia's annexation of Crimea, saying that France didn't want a resurgence of the Cold War. And saying that other things which basically helped Putin at the time. So let's remember these faces of foreign politicians who supported Vladimir Putin in his illegal annexation of Crimea. That emboldened Putin to start full-scale invasion in 2022. The France, even they were warned by the United States, for example, they knew that the war is going on since 2014. They knew that in Slavyansk, people were butchered basically like in Bucha by Putin and so on. I can't believe that the future president of France, Marine Le Pen, who wanted to be a president of France, couldn't know that. But yet, France was building aircraft carrier for the Russians for a long time until they decided, finally, oh, we're gonna stop now. Because before they didn't want to listen. Giving a bloody dictator an aircraft carrier, what a good idea, France. But finally, even Macron started to understand that there is no point to talk to Putin, that France should support Ukraine. Finally, good for you, France. Germany. I already explained in one of my videos about Germany, but I'll kind of brief you again and I'll add a few things. If you would like to know in more details, you're welcome to watch this my video, which called Why Doesn't Germany Give Thanks to Ukraine, which is basically has a big piece on German politicians who support Putin's agents in Germany, basically. German call them Putin Versteher or Putin understander, or people who enable Putin enablers, I would say. These people has either been bribed by Russia, like former German Chancellor Gerhard Schröder, who was inclined to understand Putin because he headed the board of directors of Nord Stream 1 with an official $1 million honorarium. He even came to Russia last summer, in the summer 2022, after Russia started full-scale invasion in Ukraine. He showed up in Moscow and pretended he went for a vacation, yet his wife betrayed him and told the journalists that they came for meetings to talk to Putin face to face. He lied to people and lied to reporters, and his wife confessed that that's not true. Another former German Chancellor, Helmut Kohl, has also a close personal relationship with Russian President Boris Yeltsin. Even Angela Merkel, despite warnings from the United States or Canada and Putin himself that Russia would use natural resources as a weapon, caused to let Germany continue to depend heavily on Russian oil and gas. And I don't even want to start with the former Minister of Defense, Christine Lambrecht. Her incompetence of worse is equal to treason. In my opinion, any Putin understanders supposed to be charged. Because they enabled Putin, they helped Putin, and they continue helping him. Versus the interests, against the interests of their countries. But you're welcome to watch more about Germany in this video. Not just Schröder, but Matthias Waring, they were directors of Rosneft. And after the chair underneath of them started to burn a little bit because of Putin's war, and because Schröder actually twice visited Moscow, and even Russian spokesman Dmitry Peskov, Putin's spokesman, said yes, Schröder have been in Moscow, and so they decided to leave the board of directors of Rosneft eventually. So they all was on the payroll of Putin. I would like to show you Radio Liberty article, how German politicians helped Putin. Did Germany miss the war? This is English translation of it. And they're talking about several German politicians from Willy Brandt and Helmut Kohl and Schröder and Angela Merkel and so on. Basically, Merkel was trying to do business as usual, trying not to rock the boat, and I didn't see her apologizing for what she has done. Like, I don't think she's a supporter of Putin, no, or corrupt in any way, and didn't really go into Russian bathhouse with him, like other political leaders perhaps. But nevertheless, she made Germany to be dependent on Russian gas and oil so heavily that she didn't do anything to stop this. Because it's unpopular, German people wouldn't understand, and so on. And business as usual, they all enabled Putin. Basically what Russia is doing in Germany, they're trying to unite far-right and far-left parties by bribing them, by influencing their politicians, and spreading their views that, oh, being in NATO is bad for you, being friends with the United States is bad for you, you're supposed to go to Russia, and so on. First of all, I want to talk about AfD party, Alternative for Germany, one of the most pro-Russian parties in the far right. This article also happened to be BBC, just don't put attention too much what sources I'm using. I verified this information and it doesn't really matter who published it, I just used the most convenient one mostly for the pictures and stuff like that. AfD Germans float ban on elected far-right party after scandal. I'm not gonna talk about this particular article, it's just kinda using it for the pictures and so on. So basically, Germans now protesting and asking to ban this party, but not for the reasons I think they should have banned this party, because of Russian connections and supporting Russian dictator Putin. But no, they have other reasons, because they said something genocidal or non-German backgrounds, about the removal of millions of asylum seekers, not assimilated people and those with non-German backgrounds, even if they hold residency rights and citizenships. Well, I could agree with them if they remove Russians. Not all of them, but I mean the Russians who actually took part in the protests in Germany, supporting Putin, and they should start from themselves. This party is danger to Germany, who wants to destroy Germany. Maybe they should move to Russia. Maybe they should be stripped from German citizenship and sent to Russia. Why not? Because by supporting Putin, they will only increase amount of immigrants. The more the war in Ukraine will go on, maybe the all 44 millions of Ukrainians will go away. Well, over 10 million already left Ukraine. But I mean, another 30-something left. They might want to move to Germany. Well, enjoy Germany. You supported Putin. Your party supported Putin. Your chancellors supported Putin. Well, maybe you should enjoy the immigrants then. It came up to the point that in Germany, that AfD party supported by 22% of people. But there are Germans who are against, and there are a lot of them. But this has to be stopped. This video will help you know more about Germany and Russian plan to cut off Germany's support for Ukraine. And what Putin is trying to do is support some German politicians which can succeed and maybe will be helpful for Russia, like Sarah Wagenknecht.
Wagenknecht is a member of the Left Party and has been growing in popularity over the years. In recent years, she's clashed with the traditional members of the Left Party over their views on traditional family values, immigration, and other social policies.
That politician, she denies the contacts with Russia, but her ex-husband claims that he has daily contacts with Russia. And what Russia wants to see, she uniting lefts and rights and so on, and help Russia by doing that. In this video of Deutsche Welle talking about the scandal in German secret services, German intelligence. How much FSB paid to BND for secret information? Former officer of German intelligence BND getting charged in and about state treason. It seems like he maybe give secret information to Russian FSB. This process started in December 13th in Berlin. And the main Karsten L. and businessman Arthur E., who was arrested months later. According to German media, this scandal is the biggest in the last decades. FSB and even PMC Wagner connected to that information. It looks like that Germans gave the information to the FSB and Wagner. Let's see what the court would say, but there are other scandals going on. There was some scandals with Austria and with the United States, when some boy basically published secret information in the computer game and so on. So the FSB is working in this sense. Basically, if you want to find out if politician has pro-Putin leanings, well, they would advocate for removing sanctions from Russia, not supply weapons to Ukraine, and talk about that their country is supposed to be first, and pushing all that protectionism, which failed in the past. Countries get into great depressions because of that, but that stupidity is still alive and still kicking. And another thing, they would advocate for ceasefire and stopping the war by any means, just freeze the conflict and so on. This is what Putin wants. Whoever advocating for that are Putin's supporters. Germany is standing up from the AfD party, that far-right party I told you about. This is what Germany is doing. They put lanterns saying never again. They wanted to stop that Nazism and fascism which coming from Russia, who supports Nazi and fascist parties in other countries. On the bright side, finally, Mr. Scholz decided to help Ukraine more, and finally he started to say things how they are, openly, saying that Putin is a bad guy and he is attacking in all Europe, include Germany, by attacking Ukraine, and Ukraine need help. Even German Chancellor Olaf Scholz issued a video warning.
I'm saying it clearly and bluntly. Right-wing extremists are attacking our democracy. They want to destroy our cohesion.
Finally, good morning Germany. And you should know it's not only right-wing extremists, left-wing extremists in many other countries too, because Putin fed them all, on the right and on the left. Anybody who can destroy your country, who can make your life worse, Putin helped them, and so did the USSR in the past. And I can prove this. Greece. Golden Dawn, one of the most pro-Russian parties on the far left. That's what it was in 2015-16. And the popular association Golden Dawn is a far-right neo-Nazi ultranationalist criminal organization and former political party in Greece. Golden Dawn rose to prominence during Greece's financial crisis of 2009, becoming the third most popular party in the Greek parliament in the January 2015 election. Its support since plunged, and it's failed to enter parliament in 2019 election. The criminal trial against the leaders, frequently described as the largest Nazi trial since the Nuremberg trials, lasted more than 5 years. So this is basically the only party of the time I was talking about, 2015-2016, which is not exist anymore. The rest of them are still there, supporting Putin. Hungary. As you can see, the score is not very high for Hungary, and 42 out of 100, but rank is 77. This is not bad out of 180 countries, but the score isn't very high to compare other European countries, more democratic I would say, and no doubt because the corruption of the regime is basically, that's what dragging Hungary back. I remember researching that country at the time when Hungary joined European Union, and basically their economics and everything just skyrocketed after that. To compare that what it was during the USSR time, and kind of sad to see that some of Hungarian politicians lying to people saying, oh, how bad it is, oh, they never was that bad if it was in Soviet, like it was in Soviet Union. And Hungary was basically a window of the shop of the Soviet Union. It was supposed to be the best in Soviet Union. Yet to compare the European Union, it was nothing, basically. Let's talk about their parties. Jobbik, one of the most pro-Russian parties on the far right. The Jobbik Conservatives, and it's a movement for a better Hungary. Yeah, good luck with that idea, better Hungary. If you support in Russia, it would be only worse Hungary. This is a conservative political party in Hungary. Originating with radical and nationalist roots, at its beginning, the party described itself as a principled conservative, as radically patriotic Christian party whose fundamental purpose is the protection of Hungarian values and interests. Where did I hear that? Oh yeah, Putin has traditional values. The guy who has multiple lovers and children from a whole bunch of women will talk about traditional family values. Huh. In 2014, the party was described as anti-Semitic organization by the Independent and Neo-Nazi Party by the President of the European Jewish Congress. From 2015 to 2020, the party started to redefine itself as more moderate conservative People's Party and changed the controversial elements of its communication, culminating with the new declaration of principles, now defending itself as a center-right pro-European party with some residual moderated nationalistic tendencies. That position previously occupied the ruling party Fidesz, if I pronounce it correctly. And another party is Fidesz, Hungarian Civil Alliance, is a right-wing populist and national conservative political party in Hungary, led by Viktor Orban. Orban is the Prime Minister of Hungary. This is an interesting article about Viktor Orban. Putin's buddy Orban pushes EU to the brink of Ukraine. And I just watching one interesting documentary about Viktor Orban and basically astonished how so revolutionary guy who was against the USSR and understanding that USSR as well as Nazi Germany committed terrible crimes and so on, and was involved in the museum of basically crimes of the Nazi Germany and the USSR, after he probably gets some money or something from Russia, he quickly changed his tune, and now he's trying to be a little dictator there, who is not basically getting out of power and having his own soccer field and his own little railroad and so on, just because he liked to look at the trains going by when he was a child, so he restored the little railroad where he lives and so on. And supporting Putin, pushing the European Union of the cliff edge, and trying to basically help Putin and versus the helping European Union. As I said, he's buying his supporters by spending money onto increasing their pensions all of a sudden and so on. And Orban was the most vocal opponent of sanctions against Russia ever since Putin's annexation of Crimea. But this time it's different, as European officials said, and Orban is trying to sit between two chairs. We will see how long that's gonna last. And I think European Union has to make some tough decisions about Hungary and about Orban. If they rather be with USSR and Russia, well, good luck to them. We'll see how they like to freezing in winter because of corruption, and how their people would like to die in the war like Russians or Ukrainians. And this is what Orban is all about. And European Union, I think, getting really tired of him. Italy. To talk about Italy, I will use somewhat footage of a video made by Navalny Group and Dmitry Nizovtsev. It's about Silvio Berlusconi. Over the decades, Italy earned itself a reputation as one of Europe's Russia understanders or Russian supporters. Even now, ties remain relatively strong between some Italian politicians and businesses and their Russian counterparts. For many years, former Prime Minister Silvio Berlusconi was a supporter of close relations with Vladimir Putin's Russia and was among the strongest advocates of that country's membership of the G8 and bringing it into the Western and NATO order. Berlusconi was Putin's friend and a close ally for many years. Putin and Berlusconi were friends and spent a lot of time together, even went fishing together, and defended each other on the press conferences. On one of the summits, a journalist asked Putin tough questions about Chechnya, about Yuko's case when Khodorkovsky was imprisoned. Silvio Berlusconi interrupted the journalist and defended Putin. And Putin at the time made a joke that he never had such an advocate, such a lawyer on his side before. So Berlusconi was great at defending Putin. Next time it didn't work out so great. In 2008, on a press conference in Sardinia with Putin and Berlusconi, somebody asked Putin first time about his relationship with his lover, Alina Kabaeva, the gymnast, who actually a mother of Putin's children out of wedlock. Great traditional values, by the way. Putin got offended, and Berlusconi couldn't defend him at the time. Berlusconi, unlike Putin, wasn't hiding his relationship with women and models, and Italian SME, Italian media at the time was loved to write about it, but then they get tired of watching Berlusconi doing that, and even the term was invented, bunga bunga, which is meaning his sex escapades and sex parties with prostitutes, which caused a major political scandal in Italy and caused quite a bit of a grief on Italy as a country in general. Italians must have loved Berlusconi. He was elected as prime minister 4 times, and only in 2011, when there was investigation and cases of his corruption, finally he was kicked out of the government. And yet, in 85 years old, he get elected in European Parliament. Berlusconi praised Benito Mussolini. He said some of his laws, of course, was a bit too radical, but in some other aspects, he did well.
Other ways did well.
After Russia started the war in Ukraine and illegally invaded and occupied and annexed Crimea into Russian Federation, in 2015 Berlusconi visited occupied Crimea, Russian-occupied Crimea. And even after full-scale invasion, he received a box of vodka from Putin and warm letter, and he told about it to his party members, and it was published in La Presse. All of this make Italian people very angry, and this video was made actually after Berlusconi died in the summer of 2023, and some of the people was even saying that he shouldn't be buried for the expenses of the state and so on.
Это большая утрата не только для Италии, но и для мировой политики.
As Putin said, this is a big loss, not only for Italy, but the world politics. I decided to show you more about Berlusconi just to give you an example how one politician have close tie to Russia and friendship with Putin and so on. Meanwhile, other Italian politicians have also signaled where their sympathies lie. For example, Matteo Salvini, leader of the League, undertook the same stunt twice, wearing Putin's t-shirts in the European Parliament in 2015 and in Red Square in 2017. Meanwhile, Italian companies represent the 6.3% of international business actors still present in Russia. In 2017, Joe Biden warned of the threat of Russian disinformation activities in Italy, in aid of the nationalist Northern League and the populist Five Star movement ahead of 2018 general election. A few weeks before the election that year, Last Tampa revealed the Russian trolls identified in the US Justice Department investigation into Russian interference in the 2016 US presidential election had retweeted messages from Italian accounts. Unlike in many other European countries, and since last year's general election, Italy stands out for having several major political parties whose leaders have vocally expressed their views defending Russia and pushed back against measures that aim to reduce Russia's ability to continue to attack Ukraine. Conte opposes escalation. Salvini has claimed sanctions were hurting Europe more than Russia. Berlusconi requested dialogue with Putin. In terms of the role of political leaders, they disseminate pro-Russian and anti-Ukrainian narratives in 4 main ways. First of all, they openly supporting Kremlin narratives, allowing to go unchallenged false information about the war on sanctions and energy, ignoring information on the war, sanctions and energy, and propagating false information relating to the war in Ukraine. This is an interesting article, Democratic Defense, How Italy Can Lead the Fight Against Russian Disinformation, and I recommend that. Also, beside 2 major kind of parties like Northern League, one of the most pro-Russian parties on the far right, and Lega Nord, the right-wing federalist, populist and conservative political party in Italy. In the run-up in the 2018 general election, the party was rebranded as Lega without changing its official name. And also Five Star movement, which is alliance with pro-Russian camp. There are other politicians who support in Russia, and I recommend to read this article to find out more about that. This article from 2022 will tell more about Berlusconi, Putin, and some other Italian politicians who supporting Putin and so on. The article says, Berlusconi, the scandal-ridden founder of Forza Italia and Putin's old pal, mildly criticized the Russian president in the aftermath of the February 24 invasion, but he eventually couldn't help voicing his true beliefs. I believe Europe must make a common proposal for peace, trying to get the Ukrainians to accept Putin's demands, Berlusconi said in May, warning against EU sanctions that could imperil Italy's access to Russian gas. In the interview just days before the election, he said that Russian invasion was pushed by the Russian population, and the plan to replace Zelensky government with a government of decent people was hijacked by unexpected and unpredictable resistance from Ukrainian troops, who were then fed with weapons of all kinds. So it's too bad Ukraine defended itself. Putin should have get it. An article also saying what Giuseppe Conte, the leader of the Five-Star Movement, and Italy's former prime minister, said about what he is thinking. The Five-Star Movement, once a populist party that ran on an anti-corruption platform and over the years morphed into an unidentified political object, crumbled over military aid for Ukrainians. The hardcore section of the party proudly hosts long-time critics of US imperialism, NATO skeptics, admirers of China's regime, and even outright Putin's apologists. Conte hopes also to appeal to segments of Catholic electorate following Pope Francis' recent appeal to Putin to stop Russian aggression and to Zelensky to be open to serious proposals for peace. Netherlands. PVV, Party for Freedom, leads in pro-Russian votes on issues such as Ukraine and its leader Geert Wilders. After 2023 general election, it became the largest party in the House of Representatives. During 2023 Dutch general election, the PVV called for withdrawal Dutch military support for Ukraine. A few words about Geert Wilders and PVV. In 2014 elections for the European Parliament, PVV received 4 seats and tried to form a new parliamentary group together with France's Front National, later joined by Italy's Lega Nord and Austria's FPÖ. Each of those parties have had close ties to Russia. We talked about these parties in this video, by the way. In 2016, Wilders described Vladimir Putin as a true patriot and an ally in the war against Islamic terrorism. In 2016, he opposed the association agreement between the European Union and Ukraine. Good supporters for Putin. Good supporter. Bravo. Qui pro quo. Please remember these faces and these politicians. In November 2017, Wilders said that there was hysterical Russophobia in the Dutch government that he wanted to counter. However, the PVV insisted on punishing the perpetrators of the downing of flight MH17, which is Russia, and as I proved to you and showed the videos about Girkin Strelkov, you can find out about that more in the playlist Girkin Strelkov, or the War in Ukraine 2014. On 28th of February 2018, 4 years after Russia's annexation of Crimea, Wilders traveled to Moscow and met with senior Russian officials in the Duma. His trips sparked sharp criticism among relatives of Dutch victims of the MH17 disaster, who accused him of disregarding Moscow's involvement in the tragedy. On the 27th February 2018, Wilders tweeted, "Russia, Moscow, Duma, stop the Russophobia, it's time for realpolitik, partnership instead of enmity." According to the PVV electoral manifesto, the Russian aggressor has unlawfully invaded Ukraine. But we do not send our money and defense equipment such as F-16s to Ukraine, but keep it for our armed forces. Nevertheless, they will provide the planes, but this is the position of the pro-Putin's party in Netherlands. This is an interesting article, Europe's pro-Putin populism problem, I recommend. But now I want to talk about something else, about documents leaked by Ukrainian hackers in October 2023, which showed that attempts by Kremlin to cultivate connections with members of PVV. It's exposed various collaborations between Russian officials and PVV members. The most of this was coordinated through the Russian Peace Foundation. Isn't that funny? Russian Peace Foundation. That's such an interesting term. The country who started aggressive war in Ukraine has a peace foundation, apparently. But, in truth, it's pro-Kremlin propaganda organization of the right-wing populist parliamentarian Leonid Slutsky, which was discussed that Slutsky and that foundation have influenced and bribed Western politicians and decision-makers for at least 10 years. These people were invited to election observation missions, events promoting traditional values, so-called conferences in anti-NATO and anti-EU events. The leaks also showed that Wilders and PVV have tried to conceal its ties with the Kremlin. In one of the leaked emails from 2016, Wilders demanded that the generic public would not see the Russian guests present at the meeting of European sister parties. So, you're welcome to find out more about this and learn more about Putin's ties to the PVV party and Wilders himself. Spain. If to talk about Spain, and we keep getting back to that article we started this video from, even at the time, which is 2016, beginning of the war in Ukraine, basically there was a party, and still there is a party, Podemos, a pro-Russian party on the far left, which is translated in English as We Can, and this party is kinda left-wing to far-left political party in Spain. It still exists. This is what they say. Podemos opposes of the NATO war rage, and we refuse to escalate the war in Ukraine, with more and more weapons to encourage the warlords, even if public opinion crushes us on television. Pablo Echenique, the parliamentary spokesperson for Podemos, said last week in reference to NATO's decision to send more Leopard tanks. In this article, Russia-Ukraine war tests unity of Spain's left-wing government. Spain's ruling Socialist Party is in favor of arming Kiev, but its junior coalition partner remains unconvinced. February 2023. Also saying that the same party, Podemos, basically trying to stop their country from helping Ukraine. You're welcome to read it for yourself. It's one of the... It's not that fresh article, but it's showing what Podemos is thinking. Leading figures in Podemos have voiced opinions in public which contradicts the socialist policy. Podemos opposes the NATO war rage, and we refuse to escalate the war in Ukraine, with more and more weapons to encourage the warlords, even in public opinion, crushes us on television. Pablo Echenique, parliamentary spokesperson for Podemos, and so on. And smart people in Spain, even back then, when the article was written, understand that you can't really escalate the war with Russia. José Manuel Albares, the Spanish foreign minister, defended the decision to send tanks, saying it wouldn't escalate the war with Russia. And it didn't, as we know now. Unfortunately, Russian President Vladimir Putin doesn't need any excuse to escalate the war. They, the Russians, will do what they want. And we all want peace, but there is a person, Putin, who doesn't want it, Albares told Telesur television channel. And he's right. And smart people understand that you can't escalate this war. Putin will do whatever he wants, no matter what you do. And the only way to stop the bully is just stop him. United Kingdom. Probably there is no point to talk too much about United Kingdom. As you can see by the score, it's one of the least corrupt countries in the world. And so is the other countries I showed you. They have a low level of corruption. It does not mean that in these countries cannot be, and there are, few corrupt politicians who is doing Russian bidding and taking their dirty money. And United Kingdom, unfortunately famous that London alone is a safe haven for Putin and his oligarchs, and their dirty money and Russian stolen money from Russian people are harbored in London. I would say that United Kingdom is fighting that, and especially after the video came along, which was filmed by anti-corruption foundation, and when it called From Russia with Cash, for example, which was shown in British Parliament, and it helped to British politicians to find out how much Russian corruption get into United Kingdom. For example, in the video, basically a journalist, an actor, pretended to be Russian oligarch. He came with a pretty woman at his hand and at his arm, and he literally told British real estate agents that the money is stolen. And yet, they helped him to find property in London and this and that. So that was a big deal years ago. Nevertheless, still there are plenty of Russian oligarchs hiding in London. The son of famous Russian propagandist Solovyov is in London. Lavrov's lover's daughter, his kind of stepdaughter, is in London. And many other people who hiding money they stole from Russian people in United Kingdom, especially in London. Why is that? First of all, because London is a big financial center. Or I should say second of all. First of all, because Russians just love London. And I'm no exclusion. This is just maybe because we loved Sherlock Holmes and Agatha Christie. Maybe for some other reasons. But we just love London. Nothing we can do about it. After full-scale invasion of Ukraine by Russia in 2022, United Kingdom started to pull back from their friendship with Russia and Russian oligarchs. And really helped Ukraine. They sent them the first weapons, which kind of like javelins, only simpler and easier to use and stuff like that, and really helped to defend Ukraine. And if not for the help of United Kingdom, who knows, Kiev might have been captured by Russia at the time. So I'm not blaming the British people, and I'm saying that United Kingdom helped a lot to Ukraine, and even Boris Johnson tried to distance himself from Russians and tried to help and so on. But the point is, they can do more, and they really guilty in helping Russia in the past. So Ukraine is grateful to United Kingdom very much. Since I'm not Ukrainian, I'm Canadian, I can criticize them a bit because they really helped Russian oligarchs and Putin in the past. But now they did a lot for Ukraine, and I'm quite proud of United Kingdom on that point. When we're talking about United Kingdom, and in that article from 2016 was mentioned UKIP, United Kingdom Independence Party, as one of the most pro-Russian parties on the far right. And this party is Eurosceptic, right-wing populist political party in the United Kingdom. Talking about this party, we cannot not to talk about Nigel Farage. I hope I pronounced names right, but since I show you the page, I guess you'll figure that out. So, it's a British broadcaster and former politician who was leader of that UKIP party, and so on, and even currently honorary president of Reform UK and a presenter for JB News, and served as a member of European Parliament, and until United Kingdom's exit from European Union. So I wouldn't stretch too much, I think, saying that perhaps Brexit was maybe part of Russian interference as well, because Russia interfered in everything else. Why not this? And this gentleman, softly calling him that, Putin's puppet, who was pushing Putin's interests and Russian interests. Maybe he's not Putin's puppet, and just Russian interests happen to be exactly the same as Mr. Farage and his party, which is damage the United Kingdom and let Putin win. And destroying his country, whatever he done. And that Brexit thing, I don't see it did too much good to United Kingdom, and I think United Kingdom people started to notice that as well. And so this man is still influential, and his party still exists. I don't like to be lied to, and I don't think British people would like to, but this man lied to British people. Basically, on February 24th, 2022, when Russia attacked Ukraine, unprovoked, and second time attacked Ukraine, because first time Russia attacked Ukraine in 2014. The war was going on. for over 8 years. And Mr. Farage is unaware about that, apparently. So he said that the 2022 Russian invasion of Ukraine was a consequence of EU and NATO expansion, which came to a head in 2014. It made no sense to poke the Russian bear with a stick. These are the dark days for Europe. I offer in my channel, I have whole playlist on the war of 2014 and showing that it was unprovoked Russian aggression. Neither EU nor NATO did nothing, and Putin admitted as much himself. So if Mr. Farage is unaware of that, he welcome to watch my channel and find out before saying ignorant and stupid things like that. Which is a lie. Whatever he say is a lie. Made up lie. Internet remembers everything. This is an article, UK's anti-EU leader accused of being apologist for Russia before vote by Andrew Osborne and William James. 2014. Let's see what Farage said. Nigel Farage, the head of Britain's UK Independence Party, UKIP, lambasted the European Union over its handling Ukraine in the debates on Wednesday evening, saying that bloc has provoked Russia into taking action and had blood on its hands. Unbelievable. We should hang our heads in shame. You should, Mr. Farage, whose party is forecast to poll strongly in elections to the European Party in May, said during LBC radio debate with Nick Clegg, British Deputy Prime Minister. We have given a false series of hopes to a group of people in the western Ukraine, and so did up were that they were actually toppled their own elected leader. That's provoked Russian President Vladimir Putin, and I think European Union frankly does have blood on its hands in the Ukraine. Unbelievable. That is blunt lie. And I proved really clear that, first of all, there was no coup in Ukraine. You can watch the video about that. Proven, absolutely, 100%. There was no coup in Ukraine. Russia lied. And Russia attacked Ukraine. Basically, at the time when legally elected president of Ukraine Yanukovych was still in power. Russia even issued a medal to the Russian troops for capturing Crimea. On the 20th of February 2014, when legally elected Ukrainian President Yanukovych was still in Kiev, being a president of Ukraine. And even next day he still was in power, and Russia already attacked Ukraine. So none of this is true. And if he didn't know it back then, he should well know now. Because everyone knows now what happened in Ukraine, and any politicians who doesn't know it is a liar or an absolute dummy. In either way, he shouldn't be in politics, because they are a threat to their country. UK went even further. They made Yevgeny Lebedev a lord, member of parliament, and a lord, the son of former FSB officer and a Russian oligarch, Alexander Lebedev, and former KGB officer. As we know, there is no such a thing who is former KGB officer. Now he is under the sanctions of Canada, and so on. I don't see he's under the sanctions of UK. Yes, I'm not making this up. This is UK Parliament. Appointment of Lord Lebedev. This is what this document says. Lebedev's father and business partner is a former KGB spy turned billionaire oligarch who continues to fill his coffers with investments in occupied Crimea and Russian munitions. We have heard worrying reports about existence of private back channel between our Prime Minister, British Prime Minister, and President Putin, facilitated by Lebedev. And so on. You're welcome to read this document by yourself. This post is from Bill Browder, is the gentleman who organized defense of Magnitsky justice campaign. And the reason why many of the oligarchs get under the sanctions from different countries, include Canada and UK, and so on. He posted about 2 members of British House of Lords attended Russian ambassador's party in London in June in the midst of Russia's genocidal war in Ukraine. It's a real problem you can't vote out lords. Those 2 guys wouldn't have much of a future if we could. So, there are people in UK, especially in parliament, like lords, as you can see, who personally supported Putin and his genocidal war in Ukraine. Remember these faces. This article is about British peers attended Russian ambassador's party in London. The Guardian. Lord Balfour and Skidelsky were an event in June where ambassadors sought to justify Moscow's invasion of Ukraine. So you're welcome to read it. Slovakia. In Slovakia, there is Smer, left-wing party, which was known even since, what I said, 2016 article and so on. And now, basically, that pro-Russian party wins Slovakia's parliamentary election. It happened in October 2023. A populist former Prime Minister Robert Fico and his party Smer have won early parliamentary elections in Slovakia, staging a political comeback after campaigning on pro-Russian and anti-American message, according to results announced in Slovakia. This is what Fico was saying at the time. We are not changing that we are prepared to help Ukraine in humanitarian way. It's unbelievable. The bloody war is going for 2 years and he talking about humanitarian way. I wonder how they sleep at night, those people. They basically allowed Putin for 2 years and 8 years before that murdering Ukrainians in their own country. And recently, if you watched my videos about the end of 2023 and the beginning 2024, Russia keep shelling Ukraine, keep killing civilians. My friends in Kharkov get shelled, the nearest buildings get collapsed and people died there. And these people can sleep well, because they're talking about humanitarian aid. This is another article by Politico, why Slovakia's Fico hates Ukraine. And you can, welcome to read it for yourself. Thanks to the people from Slovakia who stopped that guy from helping Putin by their protests. This is from the channel Warthog Defense.
The new Slovakian Prime Minister is about to find out that selling your country's foreign policy to the Kremlin might not work in a country that knows what Russians are. Huge protests demanding his resignation in Bratislava.
What I can say that it worked. Fico now backed down and said, yeah, we're gonna help Ukraine. This is what helps, when people stood up for what is right. Beside those meetings with pro-Russian coalitions in some fancy hotels and nice places in Greece and so on, I translated for you the Wikipedia article about International Russian Conservative Forum. What was that? And many foreign media covered it at the time. It happened in St. Petersburg, and it took place on March 22nd, 2015, when basically Nazi parties from different countries, you can see the list of them, and they were invited to Russia, to St. Petersburg, like that Golden Dawn party, for example, where they were paid to be. Russia paid for their travels, Russia paid for their staying in Russian hotels, and they taught them how to disrupt the life in their country. You can see the countries here, even from Great Britain, from Greece, United States, Texas, National Movement, and so on. So this were done in 2015, when Russia wanted to promote that it's okay that Russia took Crimea, it should be Russian in the first place, and so on. And they need something to distract people in other countries and find somebody who will support Russia and push their narrative that it's fine that Russia taking other countries. We should do nothing, business as usual, and so on. So these are the parties from different countries who arrived in Russia and marched, and those Nazis was marching in St. Petersburg. And so far nobody attacking Russia, nobody trying to denazify Russia for some reason. Yet this is what happened. Now let's talk what to do about it. This article from BBC News, Information Warfare, is Russia really interfering in European states? Yes, it is. I can tell you, but you can read the article by Becky Branford. And it's telling about the new informational warfare, and about techniques which are available, which is hacking, which is boosting oppositional parties, which all this video was all about, and fake news and disinformation, and many other things. And what is basically Russia trying to achieve? She trying to destroy the life in your countries, because Russia can't, Putin can't, with his corruption, build a good life in Russia. That is why he need to bring down everybody else, that drag the world in the past, centuries in the past, to destroy the democracies, to basically make a wedge in between countries, and destroy NATO as the main thing, just because NATO really will stop Putin from attacking other countries. As soon as other countries split up and stop supporting each other as NATO countries or European Union countries, Putin can take them on one by one. This is what it is all about. For decades, Russian informational war and disinformation and propaganda was spewing on unsuspecting people, millions of unsuspecting people, in European Union, in the United States, in Canada. Like in European Union, when I was writing my book, in about 2015, 16, 17, somewhere there, Russian RT, only RT, was basically in United States alone, was sending information about 8 to 85 million people and hundreds of millions in other countries. So what European Union is doing about it? Finally, they started to do something about it. This is Deutsche Welle's video saying that the European Union has set up a special unit called the East Stratcom Task Force to counter disinformation from Moscow. This is Deutsche Welle correspondent Terry Schulz. What she's saying is about how much money Russia spent on disinformation versus European Union.
If we look at just the financial aspect, in 2022, Russia spent almost $2 billion on its propaganda efforts. Now, in comparison, the East Stratcom Task Force has about 12 million euros per year.
And returning back to the article which we started from, this article in 2016 emphasizes that while these parties are not direct puppets of Moscow, they share pro-Russian sentiments which have proven useful to Russia. They help legitimize Kremlin policies, spread disinformation, and influence domestic debates in Russia's favor. The article suggests that the need for European leaders to address domestic populism and investigate potential covert Russian support for these parties. Additionally, it advocates for stricter regulations of political party financing and increasing transparency requirements to counter potential illegal funding from foreign sources. I absolutely agree with that this is what needs to be done. And they told it in 2016. Many countries, as you can see, didn't listen and they didn't do anything about this. This is why we are where we are right now, and people like Fico and his party, or Viktor Orban, basically holding hostages European Union and Ukraine, and allow people in Ukraine dying every day because they are support for Putin. And now, thank goodness, people in Slovakia, for example, standing up against all of this. It's time to stop it. I'm not just criticizing these countries. I am offering a solution. You have to educate people in your countries. Very much. Like, it's a democratic countries. You have to educate them about Putin's intentions, about how much Putin wants to destroy the rest of the world, how much Putin dragging my country, one of my countries, Russia, into the past, centuries into the past, destroying Russian economy, killing people en masse in Ukraine, Russians and Ukrainians. Over 500,000 people Putin already killed or wounded on both sides. Civilians dead, children's dead. They bombing Ukraine, bombing infrastructure and admitting it. And this is your future, Europe. This is our future, if we will continue to allow Putin to do what he does. We need to help Ukraine and give Ukraine anything in our power, all the weapons they need to stop Putin in Ukraine. Otherwise, everything what Russia has right now will be our future. I promise to show you the future. If democratic countries will stop defending their democracy and fell for Putin's propaganda and lies, keep electing those populist governments who are saying singing Putin songs that, oh, we should dissolve NATO, we should split up European Union, we should not stand up for each other, and so on. You will end up in Russia. And this is what is happening in Russia right now.
Russian soldiers who are fighting in Ukraine will have their property confiscated for desertion and disobeying orders. Such punishment is mentioned in the amendments to the Criminal Code, which has already been supported by the government.
Welcome to Russia. And it's not only for those who refuse to kill Ukrainians. Oh no. They basically, Putin right now put his hands into my pocket, for example. So people who telling the truth about the war in Ukraine and a whole list of other so-called crimes in Russian opinion, when people telling the truth about genocidal aggressive war Russia started in Ukraine in 2014, now their property can be confiscated. And I still have apartment in Russia. My family lives in it, members of my family, and so on. I still have a bank account in Russia, which I can't close because I'm not even there. To go there, after what I said about Putin and disprove his propaganda, I will be in jail there. So now they can just take my everything I work for, everything my parents worked for. They just can't grab and take it away because I said something contradicted Putin's propaganda and lie. People are protesting in Russian part called Bashkortostan. It's like little republic inside Russia. And one person already was killed and several people were tortured already by Russian government. If that's what the future you want for your countries, welcome to Russia. You are welcome to see what is happening in Russia right now, and not because they were bombed by Ukraine. It's Magadan region, Lipetsk, Moscow. This is what happening when your country was robbed by the corrupt politicians for decades. Then Putin started the war in Ukraine and basically sent the people who are supposed to fix all of this to the war. And now whole bunch of different places include Moscow region and Novosibirsk, and from side to side, from coast to coast, over 19 different regions in Russia having this. Not because they were bombed, not because something happened to them, it's just because of Russian corruption and Russian aggressive war. Want to see that in your houses? Want to see this in your places? This is Oryol, cities of Oryol. This is Astrakhan. This is the city I have been on. It's on Volga River, not too far from Volgograd, where I am from. Would like your car drowning like this? Keep voting for people who support Putin. Chelyabinsk and many other places. This is what is happening in Russian apartments right now in winter. Because of corruption, because of Putin sent on the front people who are supposed to fix pipes, people who are supposed to look after the infrastructure and stuff like that. And meanwhile, Putin has a yacht, about 9 of them. This is Putin yacht Scheherazade, which was captured in Italy. And it's just one of the 9 of yachts Putin have. So meanwhile, Russia is freezing. Russian economy is going down. Russians paying enormous amount of money. They can't even buy eggs. And so on, which I told you in my other videos. This is my channel. This video is very interesting. 7 years in prison for a Russian pacifist. For the woman who was changing price tags in a shop. For the information about the war in Ukraine. She gets 7 years in jail. Many other people getting 15 years, 25 years, and so on. So you're welcome to educate yourself and find out for yourself, would you like to live in Russia and a country like Russia? Meanwhile, Russian oligarchs prefer to live in democratic Europe, prefer to live in the United States, prefer to live in Canada. That's where their money are, that's where their families are, that's where their lovers are, that's where their yachts are. But if you want to live in Russia, well, keep supporting Putin. Keep supporting parties who supporting Putin. Keep blocking the aid for Ukraine. And you will end up right here. I don't want this future neither for Russia nor for my country Canada. That's why I'm fighting against it. And I made over 353 videos on this channel alone. to fighting Russian propaganda. And I have over 500,000 views on Quora when I'm answering questions about the war in Ukraine, trying to stop this. I would like you to join me. Please help Ukraine. Thank you for watching. Spread the word and help me spread out the truth about the war in Ukraine and about Putin's friends in Europe, Putin's foreign agents, and so on. Learn the truth and stay informed. Thank you for watching. See you later.